Welcome everybody to Wednesday Wind Down with Dan and Friends, the webinar and YouTube show for outdoor folks and people that like to get together with their friends and bullshit, and people that like to get together with their friends and drink. So I'm Dan. I'm the host, and tonight I'm drinking Walker 805. That's my house beer for a little while. Kelly, would you introduce yourself?
Kelly Mamer, friend and regular backpack buddy with Dan's, and because the theme for tonight is things that we used to take backpacking that we don't take as much anymore, I followed that theme with my drink, and I pulled out a Southern Comfort and Coke, which I haven't had in a really long time.
There's always a backstory, though. You don't have to go into it, but there's always a backstory with, like, I didn't drink tequila for probably 15 years, and because I thought I hated margaritas. Well, yeah, because there's just, there's a side of the freeway and like kind of those kind of stories.
Yeah,
turns out that they're actually okay if you don't drink to excess and you drink the good stuff.
And you don't sample your wife's, because Sandra's already told me I can't do that anymore.
Okay, the margarita tax.
Yes.
All right. So tonight we're talking about. Last week, Sandra's on and we talked about gear that we will never leave at home. Now we're talking about stuff that we leave behind, that we're just kind of over it. And it could be for a couple of reasons. So it could be that you tried it out and it was just garbage. Like, what was I thinking? It could be that your taste changed. It could be that you tried to lighten it up. It could be that your style has changed. And it's probably a combination of all those. So we'll see what these things fit into our different categories. So, pardon me, Kelly, what was the first thing that you don't bring with you anymore?
Well, I mean, so obviously we all carry a backpack, but I wanted to choose as my first thing. My very first backpack that I got was back when I was thinking, okay, I need a very organized backpack. I need lots of zippers, lots of containers. I need to make sure it can carry 60 pounds worth of stuff because, I'm a big guy and I need to carry lots of stuff. And, I needed lots and lots of capacity. And so my first backpack was this beautiful Gregory. It's a gorgeous backpack, but I mean, there are more straps and zippers, and I mean, the brain is got its own brain, I think. And
yeah, that's like a 10-liter brain, huh?
So speaking of being over something, that was my first thing. So I thought I would use an example, something where I leave that at home. I don't take that. I mean, almost anything. I went to the Grand Canyon with Doug a couple weeks back, and I still didn't use this pack, even though I knew I was going to have a lot of weight. This is like a 6-pound pack or something like that. So that's something I'm very happy to leave behind and make my son use when he wants to come backpacking with me.
So was that more of a lighten up, or was it a lighter capacity? Why do you think you made that change? Or why are you over that?
Well, part of it is it's mostly weight, obviously, but I mean, I just didn't need that capacity. I think when we first took the class and we talked about it, it was a 75-liter pack, and I was like, well, that's about right, because I need this much stuff, and I just kind of had it in my head. My pack now is 58 liters, and I took the brain off, and I still always have room.
Right.
I'm sure I could go even smaller. So that's part of it. I think it's just an evolution from thinking you needed big and bulky. Plus, I learned that the stuff everything in your backpack and make it more organized within the backpack, but not having everything in its own zip compartment. I think that's actually worse, because half the time you're like, which zip compartment did I put that in this time?
Right,
and you're like,
right.
Used to the whole pack. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm the same way, because you and I use the same type of pack, the same brand, Osprey. And if I didn't have to carry a bear can, I would be in a smaller pack. So summer trips with a bear can, I got to have that. So, and that's about the only time that I even get close to filling it up. For this weekend, even with coming out with water, without water, my pack will be really tight.
Right.
So my first piece of gear that I leave at home now is a remote canister stove. So this was actually the first legitimate. I don't want to say legitimate. This was one of the first backpacking stoves that I had. Actually, the first real backpacking stove I had was when I was maybe 17, and it was a Hank Roberts butane stove, and it had a needle. It was a weird kind of a style valve, but since it was 100% butane, it would flare up something horribly. So this was my first real current backpacking stove. So I got this when I first took the Sierra Club backpacking course, and I like to cook. I enjoy cooking. I enjoy being creative with my meals. And so I thought, well, on the trail, I'm gonna do all this cooking. I did that about 3 times, and then immediately was over it. I'm like, no way. So I've done a lot of switching of my cooking style, and I still like nice meals on the trail. I'm not necessarily a rice and beans kind of guy, for 7 days every day on a trip, because there are people like that, right? But I do my prep at home. So I will do some dehydrating and do some other prep at home, and then just have a relatively simple meal out on the trail. Now, I'm kind of curious about your backpack. We'll back up to that one, but I thought that I wasn't going to have any of this gear to show because it's stuff that I don't like anymore. I'm over with. I actually have all of my gear here. That I'm going to be talking about tonight. So why do I still have this stove? Why have I not used it? Well, I found out, I've just been hanging on to it. I'm like, I should get rid of it. I found out that when you invert this is an awesome winter stove. I just made a little plastic stand so you could turn this upside down. Of course I made something. But when you invert it, and because it has this little bypass, can we see that little preheat tube? It will take liquid fuel and vaporize it and heat it up. So it's great for snow melt. And I don't have to buy a separate white gas stove. So if I use it once a year, I have other people bring their canisters, and I'll just use up their canisters, and we'll just crank out water. So
yeah, I think Sandra and I borrowed it for when we did a snow camp.
That's right.
Years back, and I spent 4 hours just doing nothing but boiling water for students. So, So thanks for that, Dan.
You're welcome. Okay. What is your second piece of gear that you're over?
So the second piece of gear I'm over is, and again, this sounds counterintuitive because it's one of the base things, but it's a sleeping bag. Because I very quickly, especially after going on a week long with you guys, realized I don't like sleeping bags. Really, I don't like my feet being stuck. I mean, on a normal camp, I always turn sleeping bags into quilts. So why not just buy a quilt, which is made for the purpose and usually a lot lighter and very well designed. So I don't, unless I'm sure it's going to be cold, but even if I don't think it's going to be below freezing, I'll probably still take a quilt on a liner over a sleeping bag. I can always do a little bit of tie just to keep my feet, maybe a little warmer, but I'm not a big, pull the thing over my head.
Yeah.
I like to have a lot of open space. And so a sleeping bag was something that I'm more or less over it. I'd rather take a quilt.
And
I didn't bring my sleeping bag to show because I figured that would.
Yeah. What type of, whose quilt are you using now?
I'm using an Enlightened quilt.
Okay.
And I really like it. I'm looking at maybe getting another one of different. So that's the thing. I'm actually thinking if I, even like, again, when we did this Grand Canyon trip, I did take a sleeping bag because I knew it was going to be cold, and I just my quilt, I wasn't confident in for super cold. So now I'm looking at getting a nice colder quilt that I can use but still get rid of the sleeping bag and use the quilt. I just feel more comfortable in it.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And what's so interesting thing on my sleeping bag is, I first started with a synthetic bag and a long synthetic bag. I'm like, well, I want to put my clothes down in there to keep them warm. Yes, you're going to carry this extra weight of a sleeping bag just to keep your clothes warm. No, I'll put them in for 10 minutes and warm up my cold shirt before I put it on for 10 minutes.
I blame the WBC because I did the same thing. In fact, again, I had this weekend, and I mean, as I was sleeping in the Grand Canyon, like I can't even get my feet anywhere near the end of that sleeping bag. It's like, man, I know there's like 1.5 feet of just heavy fabric at the end, just like taunting me.
So between going to a short bag and going to down, it was amazing how my pack volume shrunk. Right, I first got my sleeping bag or my quilt, and my wife's like, "What is that? A pillow?" I'm like, "Oh, silly, that's my sleeping bag." And where my other sleeping bag compressed, was this big, and if you touch it wrong, it was going to explode and turn into miles of fabric.
Yeah.
Okay. So my second thing that I don't use, and love the folks at the Sierra Club, but this is also another one I'm gonna blame on them, is my insulated cup. I'm done with this stuff. And actually I'm done with cups. So they were really big on an insulated cup because you need it to when you're in a cold environment, you need your liquid to stay hot. Bullshit. You do not. It's hot. wait till it cools down, you drink it, and then you make more hot. Right? I've got a coffee warmer here in my office to keep my coffee that I'm going to sip all day. I'm not going to be sipping this all day. I'm going to have something hot. So I'm over this. So I switched from this to a titanium mug, and now I don't even use the titanium mug anymore. What I do is the Cozy that I heat my meal up in. I'll use that, or I'll use my cook pot and use that. So I just completely eliminated a cup. It's one less piece of gear, and it's one less thing to pack. So I've been over a cup for quite some time now. And why I still have this, I don't know. Maybe my sister will use it this weekend, although I think I'm bringing my titanium mug to let her use it. So no, I should just get rid of it now that I'm thinking about it. Put it in the
Can't
good.
get rid of everything. Got to keep some,
But does it bring you joy, Kelly?
Well, it just did. It just brought us 3 minutes of joy. That's like worth a whole year's worth of storage right there.
Nice. We're not quite at the halfway. We're almost there. But if you guys have some gear that you're just done with, I'd love to hear what them is. So throw them in the QA or the chat, and we'll take a look at them as we go through. Okay, what's your number 3, Kelly?
So my number 3 is, and this will come as no surprise to those of you like Dave who've been preaching this for a long time. It is the bladder. Again, I still like drinking with a tube, and I've just changed. I still actually do have a tube that now is just attached to a drink bottle. But I have a 3-liter bladder, which this is a 2, or this is a 3. As you may recall, down on our first Sierra trip, I think I always had this thing full all the time because I was always worried about running out of water. So I was carrying 6 pounds of water for no real good reason. It's a leak risk. I think the biggest thing, and this is maybe silly, but I would always pack my pack and then realize I forgot to put my bladder in, and then have to unpack my entire pack so I could get the bladder in, and then test the water to make sure that it was actually not stuck, or there wasn't like the
hose wasn't
pinch point, and then you put everything back in. Then you got to check again to make sure there's not a pinch point. And with all that, I mean, it's great if you have the bladder and you can, or the filter, and you just keep filling the bladder and don't have to pull it out all day. But it's just one piece that I don't know. I realize now I'm much happier not having that in the pack. So I like having my bottles outside, something I can see. I know how much is in there all the time. So bladder's gone.
And I've done the same thing. I've switched to the Smart Water style bottles, and I have one that I'll keep on my shoulder strap, like a 0.75 liter with the sport top on it, and I'll have another one that I'll keep in my pack, and when I need to, I can refill that. So where do you keep your water bottle?
So I basically have just one on each side. I usually
on the side pockets or
side pockets.
Okay.
Yeah, no, not in the front. I haven't quite got that. I know that a lot of you guys are doing that now, and I don't mind that idea. I just haven't quite got there yet. I put one on the side, and I still have it, like I said, the tube attachment. So I still drink with the tube, which is my I don't know. Maybe I just like it. The other one is more for where I'll have like electrolytes or something like that. So that's kind of how I keep the two things separate.
What's interesting is I do think there is a value to know how much you've drank, because I've been on a hot day hike, and at the end of it, I realized I was cooked. I was dehydrated and cooked, and I look and I hadn't drank hardly any of my water, and I thought I had been drinking. Now with the then you can, with the other one, you can look at it like, what am I haven't drank anything. It's like down it. And then another strategy that I use for hydration is at breaks, especially when we're near water, when I'm in the mountains, is every time I'm going to take a break or a lunch, I'm going to make sure I'm going to force myself to drink a liter right then and there, and to stay hydrated.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yep. So my number 3, rain pants. These are Marmot Precip rain pants.
I had the same ones. I was going to actually bring the exact same rain pants. I think I see where you're going with this one.
This is freaking heavy, right? So we've got Velcro. These, because you want to be able to take, when you have rain pants and you want to be able to take them off and on while you have your boots on, these have a full length, big ass zipper all the way. The entire, look at that beast that runs all the way.
Okay, I didn't have that. No, mine aren't quite that crazy.
Mine are all, they aren't quite stripper pants. You know, the Velcro. Oh, maybe you don't know about this. Anyway, I've heard about them.
Yeah. Sure.
They're actually been really good pants. They've lasted They've lasted what 3 or 4 rain shells because they just don't get used that often. Definitely don't use those for rain. That's they're big, they're bulky. I think the first time I realized I was done with them was when I'm like, these are heavy, and I brought a pair of Frog Tog pants. I'm like, I hardly ever use the pants. I use the shell regularly, and I didn't use the Frog Tog pants. I'm like, we're just over rain pants. And so what's my substitution? What am I doing? Well, day hikes, generally don't worry about it, but for longer hikes or where I know it's going to rain, I embraced, as much as I made fun of Jim and Dave. Like, it seems like everything I mock them on, it just comes back full circle. And the rain skirt.
It's still worth mocking them, though. To be clear,
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. For them, they're wearing a dress and holding a parasol. For me, it's a kilt. It's a rain kilt. But it's a sil nylon rain kilt, just a couple of ounces, packs down to smaller than your fist. I haven't used it a whole lot, but for certainly for weight and for size, it's certainly really well. These I will take these on if I'm going to go in for a snow day hike, or if I'll use them in the snow. That's about the only time I'll use them. For wind pants, they're just damn heavy for wind pants. So that's mine. Yeah. Okay. So we've got through so we've both gone through number 3. What's your number 4?
So number 4, this one's is a maybe, and that's camp shoes. So this summer I decided not to take camp shoes for the first time. Partly because we knew it wasn't going to be a super wet year, but even so, I think we all talked a bit about the same thing. I know Sandra talked about it. I kind of decided that I don't need to strip down to camp shoes to get across water crossings. I can either just get my feet wet and stay wet and change socks and keep the shoes. There's different techniques, and having them around the camp, it's not really critical to me. And again, it's not a huge weight. It's not a huge big deal to have camp shoes. But this year is the first year I went without them. Now, again, I did take a pair of camp shoes when I went just recently with Doug to the Grand Canyon, but that's a little different. We were more, base camped in the same spot for a few nights, and maybe desert's a little different. I don't know. But I think that's one. So I'm not sure I'm over it, but I'm going to say I'm over camp shoes.
I'm almost in the same category. This last summer was the first time I didn't bring any. Well, I didn't bring any.
You did.
Okay.
I'm sure we have photos, Dan.
There's photographic proof. Yes. So I didn't bring camp shoes. I did make some camp sandals. I took a green Ridge Rest foam pad and cut out an insole, and I took some super lightweight nylon cord and made the lightest flip-flops ever. They were 0.8 ounces for the pair.
And they were beautiful.
They were. Didn't use those either. So
no.
With rewards, see, the other one that falls in that category is this is my reward me like that, and I'm never gonna do what you want me to do. So my other one is a reward like that is Adventure Pass. Like, a couple times I've forgotten Adventure Pass. I'm like, I have an expired one, or I didn't buy one. I'm like, we'll see what happens, and I don't get a ticket. I'm like, with a reward like that, why would I ever? It's a positive reinforcement, so I'm not going to do it.
Nice.
Okay, so you had camp shoes, and I have something similar. I have footwear. I have boots.
Oh,
big ass boots, and these are in beautiful shape too. So because these have probably been worn twice. The only reason I actually felt guilty buying these, so I had a big pair of leather boots that were done. I think the soles they were just. I think I only used them for work a couple of times after that one. But I'm over boots, just boots, period. Right. The reason I have these, and I pulled these out of the back of my closet. I had to take the air compressor and blow off all the dust bunnies. It was pretty gruesome. So the only reason I have those is for snowshoeing. Right. After that, I'm using trail runners or hikers, right? Just a very low cut, not even a hiker, a trail runner is what I've been using. Been super happy with them. I don't even use gaiters, but been very happy with trail hikers, and it's hasn't really. I haven't had any negative consequences to them, so been very positive experience on that.
Yeah, it's funny. That's a good evolution because I'm the same way. I did the big boots, and then I had the 3/4, and then I went to the not quite 3/4, but still the hiking boots, the hiking shoes. And this last year I used trail runners, and they're very comfortable and light. I mean, lighter. And again, this is one of those. Most of these conversations are stuff that we have with the people like Dave's and Jim, whatever, where they talk about that every 3 ounces is 5 pounds of extra weight that you're carrying. I don't remember the exact ratio, but you're like, so you start thinking about it and you realize, I mean, sometimes people do, if you need the boot, if you need the high ankle support, then more power to you. I mean, if you need it, then great. But if you can get away without it, it's sure nice to get away from those big boots for sure.
Right. Yeah. I think there's often, I think it's like the camp falls in that category of camp shoes. Like, well, what if, you're afraid of what might happen. And if you can test it out in environments where it's safe, if you can test something out over a weekend and find out, so what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You have wet feet for a weekend, or what's the worst thing going to happen is you got to wear your heavier shoes instead of bringing camp shoes, And if you do that for one day, okay, well, that didn't work. Maybe we'll try it one more time before I give it up. Or you get a positive return, like maybe that wasn't such a big deal. Like my sleeping bag evolution, right? I went from a 20-degree bag to a 30-degree bag. I'm like, will I be warm enough? Oh yeah, I'm plenty warm in a 30-degree bag. But I tested it over a couple of weekends and it was totally fine.
Right.
Okay, what's your fifth item?
My fifth item is it's a camera. And it's a camera, and I know I know what you're going to talk about, and I have the similar. I mean, I had a lot of electronic different things, including a camera, that I've basically now go with the phone. My first few years, I was very much, I don't want a phone. I don't even want to look at my phone. I'm leaving my phone behind. I'm away. But I've, of course, over time now, I'm still away. I don't use my phone. I don't try and get a satellite or anything. I still prefer to be completely non-news. But on the flip side, it's my book, it's my maps, it's my compass, it's my camera, of course, right? So, like the camera is one, and I had it nicely stored. I had a nice camera. It wasn't obviously a big SLR, but it was still a nice, better than phone camera. Except that you reach the point where, honestly, they're not better than phone cameras anymore. The phone camera is just about as good as anything you're going to find anyway. So, camera is my last one.
Right on. Yeah, it is pretty amazing on your phone what that can replace. Yeah. So what dovetails into that one is the one that I have is I'm over my altimeter barometer compass. So this is a Sun 2. It's a fantastic tool. I really liked it. I used to bring a full-on big ass GPS, and like old school GPS. And what I found is that I wasn't using, so this is my evolution on when I found that the GPS, I wasn't using it to track our route. I was using it for elevation. And then I would say, well, if I'm at 10,200 feet and I'm on the John Muir Trail, I've got X and Y and I know where I am. I could pinpoint my location. Well, then I'm like, well, if I'm just using it for altitude, well, this is going to give me altitude. So then I switched to this. And then like you, once I started using the phone more frequently, like I don't need this. And what's kind of interesting is this is something that I want to sell. So I'll make you a smoking deal if you want to buy this. I haven't been able to sell it because I think the world recognizes, that this piece of technology has kind of moved on. Because so many people have some sort of a smartphone and you can get an app and it's really what you do with it.
I have a Garmin similar, different, but similar, has a lot of the same, has so many, functionality and everything, but I just don't use it anymore. Yeah. I mean, it was great. I used it. I tracked a lot of tracks. I've got a lot of, got a lot of history with it, but now I only have so many wrists. Got to have the Fitbit, so.
Right. Yeah. So that's the other thing is so this was altimeter and watch. That was mainly what I used it for. Occasionally,
Yeah.
I use it for temperature for gee whiz, it's cold. But yeah, with the wrist Fitbit, that's my timer. So how long does my stuff need to soak?
Right.
Plus,
Exactly.
you get your bragging rights that you hiked 10,000 steps
Yeah.
before break time.
I do miss a thermometer every now and then, like because it was nice to have the temperature on there. I'd have it sitting next to my head, and when I wake up in the morning, I could be proud of myself because it was 42 degrees or something.
Yeah. I'm surprised I have to look for it, that you would think there would be an app for temperature on your phone, but I have not, because there is a temperature sensor on the phone, right? Because when it gets too hot, it'll say it's.
Yeah.
But I have to look at that and see that, because that would be kind of nice. How about, it'd be cool is maybe we could make this. If we, as soon as I say it, everyone's going to steal our idea, but we could have a little lightning or a USB-C anemometer, and you could measure the wind speed. Or
no, I don't think I was going to steal that one. Don't worry, you're fine.
Okay. All right. Well, those are our top 5 things that we don't take along anymore. So let's take a look at the chat. Let's see what. So Doug makes a comment. He goes, after many years with trips with white gas, he only uses it for melting snow. Yeah. So if they're trips with shared gear, truth is canister stoves, he's absolutely right, are so much easier to share, and they're just so much easier to use. So any trade-off you might get on efficiency. So if you can flip, to a remote canister stove, even this, it's not as efficient as white gas, but damn, it's easy, right?
Yeah.
A white gas stove, people can screw that up. People can have a giant fireball and all that stuff. It's really hard to screw up a canister stove. Right. Doug has one. He stopped using an external frame pack. Okay, that's kind of an interesting concept. So external frame packs really are extolled for their ability to carry weight and their flexibility and durability. I mean, I'm not a hunter, but talk to a hunter, and they're going to have an external frame pack to pack out, meat that they're going to process. So if you're into, if you're going to be doing extended hauls, an external is, but the world has just moved away from external frames.
Right. For sure.
I
know Doug asked about what footwear to the Grand Canyon. So I actually did not take my trail runners there. I went back one level to my more hiking shoes. They're just, normal shoe height, but I just wasn't sure what to expect. So I could have got away with trail runners pretty easily, though. I would have been fine. Yeah.
I've not done any backpacking at the Grand Canyon. I've only done day hiking rim to rim, and I've used trail runners both times and have been fine with them. Yeah. Doug's also comment on the rain kilts breathe better. So what's kind of interesting on rain kilt is it's almost like a modified version of a poncho, right? Because a poncho can breathe, but ponchos can flap up and be all over the place. And that's not the case with the rain kilt or a skirt, if you will. The only thing that I'm not 100% sure is you need it to ride a certain way, because especially if it's sil nylon and it gets between you and the hip belt, it could be, it's so sil nylon is so slick, it could really move around.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hey, some comments about the Apple Watch. It says already, I think Kevin Swanson said already has a wind speed add-on. So there you go.
They beat me to it.
I've never really been, for some reason, I'm avoiding the idea of a watch that can tell me my emails and stuff. I can't get there. Not quite there.
That's a function that you can have on your Fitbit. You can, and I turn that crap off, right? Yeah. I don't need any of that stuff. I get enough of the electronic dog leash. Okay. Well, we're out of time. So Kelly, awesome. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's fun doing this and yakking. It's always intriguing too that people want to listen to us spout off on something. Like, okay, come on back. So if apparently that interests you, next week I'm going to be talking about sleep systems, not sleeping bags, but sleep systems, because there's at least 2 components, right? There's at least a pad and a sleeping bag, insulating layer or something like that. So those are the two parts. Not quite sure how that's going to pan out, but that's what I'm going to be talking about next week. So quilts, sleeping bags, blankets, maybe talk about a couple other things that are on the market. So that's next week.
Great.
Well, thanks again, everybody. Kelly, good to see you.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Happy trails.